Our world needs a sustainable economy, but the transformation to being sustainable is complex. Yet leaders that move quickly can see massive opportunities before them. I'm Joel Makower. Join me as I talk to the trailblazers who are showing us all how ESG has moved from responsibility to opportunity. I'm here with James Agar, Chief Procurement Officer at BHP, the Australian mining, metals, and natural gas producer. James, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Joel. Great to be with you.
So, procurement is an often overlooked aspect of corporate sustainability. How do you think about your role as it relates to ESG at BHP?
Look, it's a great question, Joel, and it's my history at BHP is I haven't grown up in procurement. I've been in the role for nearly 2 years, but my role immediately prior to that was running our global communications team as part of the corporate affairs function. So in that role, I was privileged to be in a position where we're on the world stage announcing some of our big ESG strategic agenda items. And much of that was around aspiration. Now I've moved into procurement and I understand that this is the place where we actually go and get it done. So all of the things like our aspiration for a gender balanced workforce, our accelerated decarbonisation plans, the aspiration that we have to create more opportunities for traditional owner businesses. All of these things were nice things for me to be able to say in my old role in corporate affairs. Now in procurement, with the breadth of influence that we have from literally the nuts and bolts at the coalface, at the operations, all the way through to the big strategic agenda items, procurement's one of those functions that has that end-to-end influence to actually go and realise these big aspirations that we have.
Well, let's add a little detail to that. How does procurement, what are the levers that you have to pull to, in effect, help the company meet its ESG goals and the big aspirations that the company has set forth?
Well, I think the more conventional answer to that, Joel, would be that you look at our spend profile, you look at our investment horizons. There's influence just within those two items itself. But I think, far more importantly, the opportunity that we have in procurement is that we get to live outside the company and really engage right the way through our supply chain to form partnerships that enable us to realise the aspirations that we've spoken about. That's what the real opportunity that comes from procurement, I think, is opening the company up so that we can bring the best of the BHP to the outside world, but also bring the best of the outside world into BHP. And that's what really is fundamental to our success, those partnerships.
That's interesting. Can you give an example of one of the partnerships that's so seems to be working?
Yeah, look, we're a mining business and we move a lot of material. We consume a lot of diesel, and so decarbonisation absolutely critical to our long-term planning, but also our short to medium-term planning as well. So, look, being further upstream and being very alive to the mega trends that we're seeing in the world around decarbonisation, we were focused on this early and we brought together our major suppliers like Caterpillar, like Komatsu, to really talk to them about the future direction of mining and the type of demand that we see emerging in our industry. And I think that was very influential in them changing the way they think about the long term and the types of products that they supply our industry. And through those initial conversations, we've been able to form decarbonisation partnerships. We've got a greenhouse gas alliance with Komatsu, with a number of our other peer companies. And we've got a similar agreement with Caterpillar, which really looks to accelerate the path to move away from diesel engines in our haul trucks to battery electric fleets and beyond.
I talk to a lot of large companies that you would think would, by virtue of their size, would have a lot of clout in the procurement marketplace, and then but they claim they don't because they're just not big enough to move markets. How do you view that at BHP?
Well, look, I think perhaps one of the unique things about BHP and our industry is that we can't just pick up and move our plant because the going gets tough. When we make an investment decision, it's generally a decision that has a time horizon measured in decades and in some cases more, significant upfront capital investment. And so the opportunity that we have, I think our new potash mine, BHP is moving into a new commodity very much as part of the broader ESG agenda, moving into potash that is the key, one of the key raw materials that goes into fertilizer production. BHP has moved into a new region for us in terms of our operating presence. We have the opportunity there with the resource position that we have to build a multi-decade or beyond basin play for our industry, and the scale of investment and operating presence that will follow that really allows us to think in the long term. And we've got the unique opportunity of starting fresh there and setting up differently. So how do we bring in the partnerships from day one to make sure that this is the most green, carbon, least carbon intensive footprint that we can possibly have? How can we get in from the ground floor with First Nations peoples to form lasting business partnerships? All of these opportunities are ahead of us, and as I say, because we have our investment decisions span the multi-decade and beyond, we're able to think in the long term, and that's very helpful in terms of forming those successful partnerships.
So, James, BHP has some pretty ambitious decarbonization goals, and you're also at the very beginning of a lot of other companies' supply chains. How much of what you're hearing from customers is driving what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, if you look at BHP's carbon emissions footprint, we obviously look at it in terms of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And for BHP, scope 3 emissions represents the significant majority of our emissions footprint. And so that's largely the emissions that are generated through the use of our products further downstream in the hands of our customers. And this is an area that we're very keenly focused on, again, coming through the spirit of this partnership approach that I mentioned, is collaborating with our customers to really identify and help them develop credible pathways to reduce the emissions through the use of our products. So for us, principally, that comes through our relationship with steel mills. The steel industry is one of the more significant carbon dioxide emitters in the world. At the moment, there's no credible technology at scale to completely shift the steel industry away from the burning of fossil fuels in order to create the steel that the world needs. So we're very focused on partnerships, and there's a number of examples I can refer to where we've partnered up for the long term with our customers in the steel industry to work out how we can reduce the emissions intensity of the steelmaking process.
There's some companies are now starting to look at how do you mine existing products to reclaim the metals that used to come from the ground. That feels like a potentially disruptive activity from your perspective. How are you adapting to a world where a company wants to mine, let's say, laptops to make metal to get the metal for its next laptops?
Yeah, look, if I take a step back, if we look at the mega trends that the world's facing in terms of what's going to be influencing global economic growth in the coming decades, it's decarbonisation, it's electrification, it's urbanisation. And all of those big forces that we see in the global economy are very commodities intensive. In order to build the infrastructure required for decarbonisation, that's going to require significant amounts of steel, copper, nickel, the electrification required for battery technology and so on. Again, very commodities intensive. And the fact is that if we look at those demand projections and we look at the world's existing supply basins, there really isn't enough known deposits of many of those future-facing commodities to feed that demand. So what are we doing about that? We're very focused on the full spectrum of growth opportunities at BHP, from the drill bit through our exploration programs that we're running around the world, through early stage resource entry, through looking at our own organic portfolio of growth opportunities and where can we invest to create value, but also looking at some M&A opportunities as well. So that's where we're looking to that's the core of what BHP does. That's how we create value, and that's how we can really play a role in delivering the commodities that the world needs. But to your point, Joel, we're certainly taking a look at those opportunities around the circular economy. We've got an innovation team dedicated to looking at opportunities like that, and we're very alive to the potential that secondary supply of materials can play a role.
So, what does success look like at BHP? And maybe ask you a little more pointedly, can a mining company ever truly be sustainable?
At BHP, we have a conviction view that the products that we deliver to the world are essential for the big mega trends that we see unfolding in global growth. That's decarbonisation, that's electrification, urbanisation. All of these things are inherently commodities intensive, and the products we deliver are essential for achieving success in those areas. So it's all very well to be providing essential products, but it's how we deliver those products to market that will ultimately define our success. And so this conversation's been about ESG. At BHP, we refer to that ESG agenda as our social value agenda. And I think historically, areas that fall within that social value agenda are around how we're going to decarbonise, how we're going to build more inclusive and diverse workforces, how we're going to create more opportunities for traditional owner businesses. These are probably areas that would have historically come in at the back end of our planning processes, our investment decisions, as bolt-ons. And really what we've been working on over the last decade is building that social value framework into the very front end of our planning processes, our investment decisions, our mine planning decisions, our operational planning. Our social value framework really influences all of our decisions at the front end of the process to make sure that we're making the best possible choices, the best business decisions that allow us to accelerate the decarbonisation agenda, be more inclusive, and create better opportunities for traditional owner businesses.
So getting from here to sustainability is never a straight line for any company. Talk about a little bit about some of the barriers that you faced and how you've overcome them.
Look, I think one barrier that we've been confronting is BHP is historically we're the largest global resources company in the world, and I think there's what's come with that has been a certain sense of we have to lead, and through that leadership position, there's been this perhaps attitude that we have to do it alone. And I think that mindset has often led to BHP in the past being quite a transactional company in terms of the way it manages its relationships. And I really think that we've noticed a very profound change through the company in recent years as we've really opened ourselves up. We know we can't achieve success in delivering the world what it needs in terms of those big mega trends that I spoke of. We can't be successful alone. We have to partner right the way through our supply chain, create the ecosystems outside of the gate at BHP that allows us to be successful and allows our partners to be successful as well. So I think that has been a barrier in the past, but I'm very optimistic that there's a fundamental shift in BHP's way of working around opening ourselves up. As I mentioned earlier, bringing the best of the outside world into BHP, but bringing the best of BHP into the outside world.
Well, that sounds like an opportunity. And I was going to ask you, what's one of the biggest untapped opportunities you see yet to dig into, as it were, at BHP that could help you get to your sustainability goals further, faster?
I'm going to build on that point of transitioning from transactional relationships to true partnership. And we talk about culture of partnership a lot at BHP, and it's nice to say, it's good sentiment, but what do we actually mean? And how can we form truly great partnerships? What are the hallmarks of a great partnership? And we could have a long conversation about that. One of the things that I think we can really anchor strong partnerships to is transparency, radical transparency, where the company BHP really opens itself up. And at the same time, our partners really open themselves up as well, where we're open about the fact we don't have the answers. We have a shared ambition around what we're trying to achieve, and we come together to solve problems in a collaborative sense. That's what I see as the real opportunity. As I said, I think we're on the path there. And what I'm really pushing in my role as procurement, but it's also a company-wide agenda, is just this radical transparency where we're very open to the world about how we're thinking about the life of an asset, where we see the opportunities, where we see the challenges, and how can we partner with our supply chain to take that on together.
Yeah, the radical transparency, it sounds scary, and I know it is for companies as it is for individuals. Being open in ways that you hadn't been before is a big challenge. You feel up to that?
It's a good question, because it's easy to say and it's hard to do. And what we've been grappling with at BHP is, how do you move beyond that sentiment of radical transparency to actually make it systematic? And that's one area that we're well down the path of our BHP operating system. It's our way of working. It's very much built on the lean manufacturing models that you've seen in the auto sectors. And that way of working that is really becoming a force at BHP internally is really built around transparency. And that's what I see. The opportunity is to take that to the outside world and use that as an interface with our key partners to really make that spirit of transparency systematic in terms of the routines, the meetings, the collaboration that we have, really anchoring it to that systematic transparency.
So, James, you mentioned First Nations, and mining companies and Indigenous communities have had a long and I think you could fairly say troubled relationship over the years. What are you doing to bring those to a place where you can work together and sustainably?
Joel, we think it's essential that the traditional owners of the lands on where BHP operates benefit from our presence and feel confident about their ability to form long-term, lasting, sustainable partnerships with us. And so in procurement, we have the opportunity to create the business opportunities that create those conditions. And so what we've really been working on at BHP is, how do we provide that confidence around the long-term investment opportunities for traditional owner businesses so they can plan and grow their businesses with our own plans. And we've seen some great examples of that recently, moving to long-term 5-year plus agreements, multi-million-dollar deals that really allow traditional owner businesses, as I say, to invest in training, invest in equipment, invest in skills to allow those businesses to grow with us in the future. So that's been a real focus for us, and we're delivering a step change in terms of the amount of investment and business opportunities that BHP is creating with our traditional owner partners.
And what do you need from those communities that would help you work with them more effectively?
To be bold with us, and to really think about our operations over the full life cycle and all the skills and experience that we need to make those operations successful. We want traditional owner businesses to be present right the way through our value chain, from earth moving to value add areas like technology, whatever it may be. We really want to welcome traditional owner businesses right the way through that supply chain. So that's what I just encourage those traditional owner businesses to really think about their growth trajectory in those terms.
So before I let you go, what's the ESG story that BHP or that you hope to be able to tell in 5 years from now?
Look, what I really hope, Joel, is that BHP is regarded right the way through our supply chain, downstream, upstream. We're viewed as an essential partner to the decarbonisation agenda. And that's not only in terms of BHP's own decarbonisation ambition, it's central to the world's decarbonisation agenda. Our products are so fundamental to life as we know it today, but also to the future direction that we see many of the big demand trends tracking. And so really to be viewed and welcomed as that essential partner for decarbonisation end to end through our supply chains.
Well, James, we really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about ESG at BHP. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joel. It's been a pleasure.